So I would like to begin by asking you about your fascinating career as a striptease artist. Your decision behind choosing such an unconventional career. How did you enter into that line? What was there any formal training which you had to do? What was the motivation behind that?
Mm. Well, the motivation for becoming a striptease artist was that I'd always been fascinated by it, and I'd always felt a kind of calling to go into that work. Now, that might seem a strange thing to say. Certainly for me, when this happened for me, I started dancing in around 2001, 2002. And at that time, the whole idea of striptease, burlesque, pole dancing, it wasn't glamorous like it is now. I'm speaking to you from the UK, so obviously my answers are coming from that lens of Western, Northern European culture. So keeping that in mind. Certainly here, there's almost zero awareness of sexual energy being in any way spiritual or something one could find a calling towards. But right from when I'd been quite a small girl, I'd had this fantasy of being a striptease artist. Alone in my bedroom, I would pretend I was a striptease artist. And this was all very strange because I was very shy. I certainly never had a boyfriend. My first kiss was when I was 18 years old. But somewhere within me, I just felt drawn to this sexual energy. Because I never dreamt it could actually happen. I worked very hard at school. I was the first person in the family to go to university, and I did a degree in journalism and writing. And my ambition was to write about sex and to write about women's issues. When you're at school, you can't say to your careers officer, I want to be a striptease artist. It seemed impossible. So instead, I pursued the path of journalism. But then when I was around 25, I saw an advert for the new London School of Striptease. And I was like, wow, you can go and learn striptease. And so I went just intending to explore my fantasy. And then I found that I loved it. I became so much more confident. Other people on the course and the teacher on the course was saying, wow, you could do this. You've got something special here. And so that was the path that then led to me leaving the journalism career and becoming a full-time striptease dancer. Then within that, I also started writing about dance and entertainment workers' rights, and I was running events and I was modelling and all sorts of things within that world for over 10 years.
So the school is still there, the London School of Striptease?
No, the woman who set it up, who's now in her 60s, she does still teach by private arrangement, but the actual school isn't there. There are many burlesque schools now in London, but that was the very first one.
Okay, so what was the response from your family and friends, immediate friends, when you said that you want to do striptease?
They were very worried. They were very confused. And certainly most of them did not approve at all. I lost some friends over it. I lost my boyfriend at the time. I think we would have broken up anyway, but he couldn't handle it. And then my parents found it very, very difficult. But I think most of the reactions came from fear. My mum said to me, within 6 months, you'll be a drug addicted prostitute murdered on the street. I think whenever we're scared, we lash out. And yeah, there was a lack of information. There was fear and just confusion. How could Ruth do this? I was at the time working as a fashion journalist on a fashion business website, the first of its kind. It was a great job. My parents were proud of me. My friends were envious of me, and they couldn't understand why I would give that up to go and do something they thought was seedy and dangerous and wrong in many ways.
And you did stripteasing for about 2 decades, if I am not mistaken, close to, right?
No, 12 years.
12 years. Okay.
In total. Yeah.
Okay. And then what made you transition into a sex coach? How has stripteasing helped you in transitioning into a sex coach? What are some of the things which you have gained from that? And what was the reason?
Well, what happened after, as I say, about 12 years of dancing was that the industry was changing a lot in London. So the kind of venues that I loved to dance at, where you're on stage, very creative, you choose your own music, you choose your own outfit, you choose who you want to speak to or dance to or not. There was lots of creativity, and I had total control over what I was doing.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ruth. I just want to give my audience an understanding of what exactly the striptease is. If you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah. Okay. So striptease here in the UK anyway is a performer going onto the stage fully clothed and to music removing all of those clothes.
You'll be totally
naked? Here, pardon?
You'll be totally naked?
Yes. In striptease clubs here in the UK, the performer ends up totally naked.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the kind of venues that I loved were closing. And for the main reason I left was I met the man who is now my husband. And to be with him, he had no problem with me dancing. He was very proud, but he didn't live in the city. He didn't live in London. And eventually when I wanted to move in to be with him, it meant leaving the city and leaving striptease. So then I trained and qualified as a fitness instructor. And actually there are similarities between being a striptease artist and a fitness instructor. You're kind of performing, you're in a state of display, but also I was my own boss. I was on my feet and moving all day, which I love. I had music on and I was bringing somebody, my client, into a very intimate situation very fast. So in your first workout with a new fitness trainer, maybe you find you're sweating, you're in tight clothes, and it's an intimate situation in the same way as going to see a striptease dancer. And I like those kinds of situations. So I did that for 6 or 7 years. In marrying my husband, I'd become a stepmother. He had children from the first marriage. And for the first time ever, I kept quiet about the striptease and the past, which was very difficult because I was not ashamed and I was proud, but it was the right thing to do. But then when my stepchildren were in their late teenage years, they were going off to university, they were old enough to understand, then we told them, hey, stepmom used to be a striptease artist. But also at that time, I allowed myself to recognize how much I missed working with sexual energy. That whole time, I felt I grieved for the loss of striptease. And I would take my suitcase of outfits out from under the bed and I would say, I should get rid of all of these, those years are gone. And I would end up crying and I couldn't get rid of it. It was still in my heart and I missed it so much. But how to get back into it? By this point, I was in my 40s, which is considered generally too old. I wasn't living in the city. And instead, so many people said to me, you'd make a great life coach. You're a great listener. You're open-minded. You're good at creating a feeling of safety for people. So I did a course, a diploma in life coaching. And then the light bulb moment was when somebody who knew about the coaching diploma and knew about the striptease and everything else I did in those years, she came to me and she said, I have some problems in my sex life. I'm very shy. I can't talk even to my partner, but I feel that I could talk to you. I know you've done this coaching diploma. Do you think you could use those coaching skills to help me in my sex life? You were a striptease artist. You won't judge me. You won't be shocked. I can say anything to you. You won't slut to shame me. if I reveal my desires? Can you help me? And until that moment, I never even imagined there was such a thing as sex coaching. Sex therapy is something different,
Yeah.
but sex coaching. And so that was the start.
Great. Also,
yeah. And I will say as well, it was amazing, and it is still amazing to be back working in the realm of sexual energy, because this is what I believe I'm here to do.
Absolutely. So you regularly interact and work with couples. That's what I understand, right?
About half of my work is couples, and then a quarter men, a quarter women, solo.
Wonderful. So my next question is related to that. In long-term monogamous relationship, one thing which often hits kind of a bottom line is desire. Maintaining desire is the tough part in a long-term monogamous relationship. So my question to you as a sex coach, what do you think, how can sex positions help couples to bring back some of the lost magic in terms of novelty and excitement?
I think sex positions can definitely be one part of a whole range of things that long-term monogamous couples can use to help keep a spark, keep things exciting, and keep things a bit unpredictable. The main complaint that I hear in couples who are unhappy is that things have got boring. And very often they will mention positions, because they will say to me, we always do exactly the same things in exactly the same positions,
like
every time.
Can you mention the few positions? Can you mention a few positions which the couples frequently go for?
Well, couples don't generally share with me that kind of information. If they say to me, we always have sex in the same position, they might say always with him on top or always with her on top, but they don't necessarily spell that out. So when I say I'm a sex coach, people sometimes think of sports coaching, football coaching or tennis coaching, and they think it's about me teaching positions and saying, no, move up a bit, move down a bit. But it's not so much like that, sex coaching.
Okay.
So where couples or individuals do mention specific positions, usually it's to do with when those positions don't work for them. So I was coaching a woman the other day who said for her to have the most pleasure, her husband likes her to be on top. For her to have the most pleasure, their bodies need to be close together. So she would be lying down on top of him. But what he likes is the view when she's sitting up.
Okay. Yeah.
But for her, physically, that's not so pleasurable. So she described that specific position because it was part of describing why she wasn't feeling the pleasure that she wants to. And she said she would lie down on him and he would say, no, kneel up. I want to look at you. So that's the context in which they describe specifics. But going back to your question, changing positions, different outfits, different times of day, different rooms in the house. These are all things that can be used to help create variety.
Yeah. The reason why I was asking this question, India is the land of Kama Sutra, and one book which has got so much of notoriety in the West, especially after it was translated by Richard Burton in 1883, was the sex positions in Kama Sutra. Even though Kama Sutra, sex position is just 20% of the book. It's more about intimacy, trust in relationship, how to build, all those things, consent, things which you hardly talk about in the context of sex. I mean, of course, only in the late 21st century, we started even talking about consent importance. But way back in 3rd century, Kama Sutra had talked about consent. So the question anyway, the Kama Sutra mentions about 60 to 70 sex positions. So how do you think can couples really execute this in real life, in relationship?
Well, as I've said, my clients don't necessarily describe to me, these are the positions we do for these many minutes necessarily. But the impression that I get when people do tell me is what we call missionary position. Yeah. So the man on top lying down. Yeah. I don't know the names from the Kama Sutra, sorry, but missionary position, doggy style.
Yeah.
So I'm talking here about heterosexual couples, but obviously there's all different spectrums. But doggy position, so the woman on all fours and the man behind. What we call cowgirl, so the man lying down and the woman on top, but lying up. And then what we would call, I don't know, lying cowgirl, where the woman's body is straight down. And then I did hear a new name for one the other day, speed bump, where the receiving partner is lying down on their tummy, but pushing their bum up, which I thought was quite a good name. Okay. So I think those are the most common ones. Okay. But something to remember with experimenting with different positions is not every position physically will work, but a position might be great aesthetically. So it might look great. It might have some kind of meaning or memory or relate to role play or something like that. As long as it's creating variety and as long as both partners are enjoying it, then I think it's great to experiment.